square and just win the whole thing and leapfrog them both as well.
Yeah, and we did see both players' lineups, of course, and these are two players that have been more experimental, I guess, with their lineups throughout this Grandmaster season. AyRoK sort of flitting between not only aggro, sort of generally aggressive lineups, but also some of the more standard / control style decks. And Warma, one of the first players there we saw bring Turtle Mage in the European region, test out some of these slightly different decks, slightly different lineups. But for now, the classes are going to be mirrored, but there are some interesting tech choices going into these both players' decks. But for now, we're kicking it off. Game number 1, the Mage Mirror, Sottle.
Picking up where we left off in the APAC region, Raven, straight into the Mage Mirror.
And here, AyRoK on the bottom with a pretty solid mulligan. I think whenever you have Lab Partner in your opening hand as Mage, you're going to feel pretty happy almost no matter what happens. Whereas Warma on the other side does potentially have a Lab Partner who's opening mulligan, if you count that Primordial Studies, but still, both players have pretty solid opening hands here. We might at least be on for a relatively even matchup, at least for now.
Did you manage to catch what AyRoK threw away? I was loading into my spectator and I saw post-mulligan. He threw away a Jandis? Okay, yeah, seems good.
Oh, sorry, he threw away Jandis Magic Trick. He had Magic Trick as well, I believe.
Okay, that seems fine. Happy with that mulligan.
I'll let him know. Sottle approved, AyRoK. You don't hear that often, so be happy with that one. Evolving Missiles is going to hit both minions, which means there's at least one removal of the Prime. Gone.
Already, you don't have to listen to me. If this is how you feel comfortable, go ahead. But I would just say slow down a touch already, just based on how fast this opener has gone. Obviously, it's the early game and there aren't that many decisions. But we're playing at a very, very rapid pace in this crucial matchup already now on turn 2.
Not tons to do here for AyRoK. And I think you even saw on the camera there was the nods. I don't know if he's listening to music or not, but there's like the nods, the okay, yep, this looks good. And now things have slowed down because suddenly there's some tougher decisions right now. There isn't just the minions on curve, the removal, the ping plan, nothing like that.
It's a really hard turn. It's a really hard turn because with Evocation in hand, there's an argument to say just get some of these cards out of your hand and potentially just even take like a low-value Mana Cyclone here just to be able to contest the board. I think seeing what the missiles did first really influences the play because he got to ping there. That's just a very nice use of the 2 mana. But I think if potentially the Lab Partner was left at a 1-2 there, you might even have to have thought about the Tempo Cyclone for just one spell.
Look at this. The Warma, on the other hand, has tough decisions, but in the other way, no spells, but double Apprentice Cyclone Mana Giant. After seeing that turn with no minion development, is there ever a reason for a Tempo Apprentice here?
It doesn't really pay off, right? That's the problem. I could understand if it was setting something up because you could, especially like you could even potentially get away with like double Apprentice because it's unlikely your opponent's able to kill both here with this early game and no board. But I do like just getting something on board because I don't think he wants to just fully concede tempo to like coin Jandis or coin Raz, right? Just coming down on an empty board and him having nothing available to fight back.
That's it. Warma doesn't have a ton of options because there's lack of spells, but that doesn't mean that he has to give AyRoK all of the freedom. Right? At least do something to make AyRoK have to consider his turn and not say, oh, wow, you just pinged past. I can do whatever I want this game.
And already, like, just from our perspective, we were looking at Warma's turn thinking, wow, this is a really rough-looking turn. But now you see him just play an Apprentice and then pass back to AyRoK's side, and suddenly it's like, wow, AyRoK's got some tough decisions here. Like, he can't kill that Apprentice. What is he supposed to do?
Okay. I was a little bit surprised there, you know.
You don't pick the ones.
Okay, this could be huge.
Nope. I thought we could have seen Elemental Allies, coin Cyclone, and then he has Mana Giant for next.
Down to 6, down to 5, yeah. Yeah, very possible.
He doesn't get to ping the Apprentice, but this kind of, like, this does set up the Raz, of course, so there's a positive to pinging the Apprentice, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I thought that could have been a turn to really put his foot on the accelerator there. He has to draw the spells from the Elemental Allies and really beef up his hand.
Yeah. I do like this sequence of plays that AyRoK made. I potentially would have looked at doing it in the other order was something that I was thinking about, where he just coined Raz that turn.
Sure.
And then just like tried to go for a ping play potentially on the following turn, or could maybe pick up arcane missiles or something. And there's obviously a world where his Raz sticks as well, which has upside for the following turn. But I do like the 2-turn setup just to guarantee kill the Apprentice. I think it's too dangerous to leave up for multiples of turns. He gave himself the out by going one maker first, right? Where he could hit Ray of Frost, Arcane Missiles, Arcane Blast.
You know, Apexis Blast can deal with this Raz and just get it off the table, and I think Warma has to, by now, have just accepted that he's going to have to play a bit of Control Mage for a bit.
Yep. No other real option right now.
He could double trade into the Raz. Then, like, would Ray work? It wouldn't, right? It'd be one off, never mind.
What are you trying to do? Play Giant? Oh, no, yeah. It'd be one off.
He can't.
One off.
Yeah. Never mind.
I do like when you just get a little bit vague and rambly, and I have to like move into your brain to figure out what you're actually asking me. Yeah. Allies Giant.
Good turn. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
And there's Magic Trick X, Mana Cyclone next turn to draw even more spells.
Exactly. And the fact that you will probably end up with a low value Mana Cyclone is offset by the fact that it's completing your elemental allies and drawing those spells that you need anyway. I think this is a really clean 2-turn here from AyRoK.
And also in some kind of completely terrible world, he's just got Evocation as well to refill, so everything's looking pretty good. So, second Giant.
Well, now here's the thing, though, right? Is that you could also go with the line where you just play Evocation this turn for Conjurer's Calling or potentially ways to deal with the Giant, and then just reset the Elemental Allies because you have the 2 Elementals back in your hand again to be able to tie that together. You have You have 6 hand spaces for a Conjurer's Calling right now, which could be pretty insane.
Well, if that's the case, what if the play was to just play Mana Cyclone?
Sure.
And then fish for the Conjurers to be able to conjure his own Giant first.
Huh? Get behind that too. Ray of Frost here is obviously huge, though.
Yep.
Oh, huge top deck for Warma. He needs these big, though. He needs these not to get value traded by Mana Giants.
He does have Ray of Frost in hand. Oh, he's going to double. Okay. Not great, honestly. Not bad, but not great.
Yeah, the VTs are there, though. That's the problem, right?
Yep. And also the Dreadlord not in a position where the lifesteal actually matters. As both players heavily fighting for board as opposed to trying to set up any kind of lethals.
Yo, go. Remember everything I said about taking your time earlier? Forget all that.
Yep, I was wrong.
It's half your turn.
You could choose to do everything else this turn and then go next turn. Which looks like is going to be the case.
Take 2 value trades here. Yeah, okay. I actually do like this. The fact that he saw both Conjurer's Calling get used on the previous turn. This makes sense.
This trade as well, because the lifesteal doesn't really matter,
Yes.
he's actually taking away the highest cost minion. So if a Conjurer's Call is generated,
Yes.
it's the biggest threat.
Yes, that's fair. Cone of Cold's slightly too expensive.
Would have been great if castable.
Is it just Breath? I think it's just Breath. Called this card Arcane Blast earlier, didn't I? That's a throwback.
It is, yeah. I did start thinking about that card as well then. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to bring it up.
Yeah.
It's a good card.
Yeah. Alright. Absolutely go time here for AyRoK. This could be the game ender. Enormous Shenvala turn potential here.
Oh, it says explode.
Ray of Frost. Arcane Missiles. Already has a double proc with potential for more if he's going to end up going with that evocation, but he could just end this on Ice Barrier and call it a turn with the Mana Cyclone.
Yeah, he got some nice damage in with that Ray of Frost and the Arcane Missiles as well, because he can just ping this off if he wants to now. He's just going to go.
I'm not sure about this. I think the Barrier Cyclone play was fine, right? Like he's hit pretty hard here off the evocation, but certainly a bad evocation might have been a slightly underwhelming turn in comparison to the Cyclone, but the hit is the hit for sure.
So now, does he actually conjure us, right? I feel like he does.
100%, yeah.
Just a little bit weird there, because like the ping even looked fine, right? He got put the Giant to 1, so he could have just pinged and Cyclone.
This technically wastes board space because he fills his board as that was the final spell for another Shenvala activation, which didn't have space to come out. But most importantly, it just puts a Conjurer's Calling back in his hand as well, which is just another huge threat for a following turn.
Now, Evolving Missiles. There's a lot of targets that need to be hit.
Oof.
So we can still hit Blizzard off this Mana Cyclone as well, which is a pretty big deal.
It's a very big deal that the Devolving Missile did not hit the Twilight Runner, though, because obviously that cannot be Ray of Frosted. Yeah. So unless there was a board freeze, does mean that AyRoK is going to have a powerful turn here and get to keep cycling.
There is now Deep Freeze and Power of Creation, so even though it looks like Warma's in a tough spot, he has 2 back-to-back very powerful spells.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that was so close to disaster, and actually kind of still is with the Sethic Veil Weaver on the board. Sethic Sorcerer's Apprentice!
With Conjurers.
Oh my god! Okay, alright, relegation on the line. Let's not get carried away with doing the cool thing because it's cool. Is it correct?
Yes. Oh my. Just a raised dead as well.
Yo, you can get a Star Student back in Outcast position now from the raised dead that you just killed with the Conjurer's Calling. Oh, unlucky.
Good setup. So you can just barrier and trade. He gets a 5/5. Can still hero power, which then will deal another 5 to the face. It's insane. He wants to.
Works against me.
What's up?
It's a little bit tricky, right? Because I guess he hasn't played that many spells. I was wondering whether he wanted to Cyclone this turn.
Oh, this is cute. Yeah, he does, right? This is really cute.
Yeah.
I did not see this at all. The ping your own Arcane Missiles and then Mana Cyclone at the end of the turn. This is a really good spot from AyRoK. Yeah, I love this turn.
Oh, wow. 2 Cram Session and Pexis Blast. Not bad outcomes either, and Warma now needs something pretty miraculous. And let's remember, AyRoK got the Devolving Missiles on the Solarian earlier in the game, which means there's no Prime out for Warma. He hasn't generated another one, as far as I can recall at least.
Frostnova is Frostnova.
But there's a Dragonbane, so...
I know.
And if he Novas, he's not playing any minions, right?
And then Apexis Blast and Hero Power is just going to end the game. But what other choice does he really have
he
here?
doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's probably safer than going for a Power of Creation into, I don't even know what, double Kato or something.
Yeah. If he can like maybe soften up the board once or twice with some little removal spells here, he can set up for like Power of Creation Gyrocopter maybe to like get him some good trades. Which actually, based on where those spells went, kind of looked like what he was going for, right? But we know that the Apexis Blast is going to get the job done. Exactly what AyRoK would have needed and exactly what Warma would have been seeing in his nightmares for the last week or so. The quick and easy Game 1 victory for AyRoK, at least in the context of a Tempo Mage Mirror.
Right, and it was a tough one for both sides there. I think AyRoK did very well with the execution of his turns. I think, again, although I was talking about a slightly different way around like the Giant and Elemental Allies turn he could have gone, I think his planning for Mage turns actually looked quite strong, from my point of view at least.
Yeah.
And but I will say, a little bit unfortunate for Warma, where the spells just didn't exist. most of that mid to early to mid game, really. So he had the Apprentice, had the Cyclone, had the Mana Giant, and no spells. It's pretty much worst case scenario a lot of the time for Mage there for Warma. So definitely a tough one for him, but that is just our game number 1. We are going to go to a quick break while we set up our game number 2. AyRoK currently leading. Let's see if he can take it all the way right after this. Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to get into our game number 2 between Warma and AyRoK. AyRoK currently leading 1-0 now off the back of some very clean mage play in the mirror, and it does mean he is one game closer, Sottle, to that safety and dodging relegation this season in what's been a pretty dicey season for AyRoK and Warma, to be fair.
Yeah, it has. It's been full of ups and downs, I would say, for Warma, whereas I think AyRoK has had a little bit more of a consistently negative run of it. He was obviously right in the bracket for automatic relegation right up until the end. It was pretty much a straight-up three-way fight between himself, Silvername, and Ball Control for basically the entire season. It seemed to become pretty clear pretty quickly that it was going to be two of those three players that were going to be automatically relegated from Division B, whereas Warma did hover around a more mid-table position for most of the weeks. Did take a couple of gambles on Turtle Mage that didn't pay off that big for him in the end, but overall I think has had a slightly more consistent season, but that really counts for nothing when you get down to this point. You know, it's just the way the format works is one match is going to have more meaning than all of the others, and this is the one that they're faced with right now. And certainly AyRoK was off to a flying start here, which is exactly what he needed after being on the receiving end of three pretty quick victories from Bunny Hopper yesterday.
Yeah, and it does look like we are going to be going into a Demon Hunter versus Mage matchup. So we're going to see a Mage get stomped because Demon Hunter is so favored in the match. I'm just seeing how many people I can annoy. That's all. Sorry, I don't seriously mean that. It is a very close matchup, and although people are now starting to say, "Oh, Mage is favored, Mage wins this match," oh, I'm wrong anyway. Okay, it was Priest. Never mind. But I was going to say,
nice bit, idiot.
I know. But I will finish my point. Even though people are starting to say now that Mage is favored, I do think it is just a close one. Regardless,
yes,
but
I agree.
Ignore everything I just said. I'm stupid. We're gonna have Priest instead. Gonna go up against Demon Hunter, and AyRoK's Priest is a fairly standard list, if not the standard list. The one Holy Smite, the one Twilight Drake, and the one Cabal Shadow Priest, and then all of the expected extras in there. So it's gonna just be a good old-fashioned matchup, I think, with both players having fairly standard decks.
Yes, and the no Galacrond as well, which I have become a pretty huge advocate for in the Priest list. AyRoK off to a good start. Again, we actually saw this on the other side, right? I believe from Bunny Hopper, where he had Cleric of Scales in the opening hand, 2 copies, unactivated for almost the entire game. I think they got activated around turn 8 or turn 9 or something in the end. Something ridiculous like that. So AyRoK having that alongside the Kobold Spellkin straight away, and alongside the security of Pyromancer Apotheosis for the long game, and an early curve of minions with the Wand Maker as well. Like, this is about as good as he could possibly hope for, and I think you see the contented, happy little nod coming out there from AyRoK. He understands this is the kind of hand he was looking for.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit weird, but you just want stuff to do against Demon Hunter in the early game. You don't want these minions to just start stacking up and hitting you in the face. And even this Twilight Drake now is a big deal. All the reasons I've said ever since players started putting this in their list, it just looks great every single game we see it. I think we see it so often that it is in this relatively early game that it comes into play. It's a huge problem for. Or will be a huge problem for Warma to deal with here.
Yep. It's a 4-7 if it were to come down this turn. Reasonably close pick. I would spend a lot of time talking to myself about the relative merits of Dragonmaw Skystalker and then pick the Murozond.
But you can coin this Skystalker out. Am I doing it right? Am I doing the thought pattern correct?
Well, it's more like it kind of fits the curve really nicely, right? It's just threat into threat into threat, because you could still potentially choose to use your Draconic discount this turn, but then you'd be a little bit stuck on the following turn, so I don't think it works out particularly well. But with a double Apotheosis hand, the Death Rattle minion is so appealing. That's my main point of advocacy for the Dragonmaw Skystalker there. But again, I talked about this yesterday. I think more and more this matchup has evolved from the Priest side to have progressed past the idea of sticking a big minion and putting Apotheosis on it, to just greeding the ever-loving you-know-what out of Wild Pyromancer Apotheosis and just re-knowing multiple times over the course of the game with Pyro Apo activation. So, Murozond, good card. Pick the good card.
And now Warma's going to have to start putting together a plan. And guess what that plan should be from my point of view? So I'll get that skull to the left and get it cast, because that is what he's going to have to do. And like you said, I think the more this matchup has evolved and the more that the Priest players are saying, okay, I'll just wait for the Outlast, right? I'll build up the big heal turns, no problem. The more focus actually then leans onto this plan from Demon Hunter of like almost trying to two-shot your opponent and just kill them over 2 turns instead of letting them, you know, chip, be greedy. Oh wait, there's the big heal turn they've been waiting off. Okay, chip. You can do it that way, but I think now there's a focus more than ever on actually just packing together 2 huge turns.
And there's a wonderful kismet to this, Raven, where you just want the players to get the skull to the left to get it cast, whereas you just cast about getting the skull to the left.
Yeah, I did that on purpose, right? No?
Have you ever done anything on purpose in your entire life?
No, but that just makes it more impressive, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I must consider.
Well, looking at here, even though there is the option for the Spellkin, there are a lot of cards in hand and a Twilight Drake Soul, so you know what I want to do. Play with you.
Yep. Interesting that the Renew came down here as opposed to the Radiance. The Radiance was obviously full efficiency healing here. He could have just gone Twilight Drake first into Radiance. Drake would be the same size.
Yeah, if what's the word I'm looking for? What's the card? I'm going crazy.
This one's beyond even my powers to know what you're talking about.
I'm having a bad
Raven.
start to the day. Okay,
yeah.
I apologize. But yeah, this if Ascetic comes down, obviously Radiance the less flexible tool, because it
gotcha.
won't be able to proc.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the Twilight Drake's on the board, and look at that. It is a bit of a problem here. Warma, even in the Altruis and Penflinger list he is running, is still running a Consume Magic, which is very important in this matchup. Although we did get to see sometimes the weird negative state you can get if your opponent finds out you have it in hand.
Right. Yeah, definitely would have liked to see the Radiance come down on the previous turn. I think there's a lot of upsides. It was perfectly efficient. There is an upside to having Radiance as a surprise card because it's generated. It's not something that your opponent's necessarily going to account for. You can kind of bait them into going all in. But I think those are minor things in comparison to the upsides of holding on to Renew, which is additional information later on about which spell you're actually going to want to have in certain situations, and the Sethic upside, as you were just talking about. So,
now, how greedy are we talking here, Sottle? Can AyRoK feasibly use one Apotheosis this turn if he wanted to? Or do you think even that is using up the resources too early?
Yeah, I kind of liked it, honestly. It was something that I was looking at that turn. I think it's absolutely fine because he has the double Apo in hand already. I think the fear, yes, exactly. Because it's a Twilight Drake specifically, it's just so brutal against Consume Magic, right? Like any other reasonable sized minion, they Consume Magic it, fine. They've dealt with your Apotheosis, but you still have a 3/5 or an 8/8 or a Dragonmore Skystalker or whatever you've ended up putting it on, right? But in this case, you have a freaking 4/1, so it's just completely miserable. And
it's
put
funny,
it on a big Twilight Drake.
What makes it good also makes it bad, right?
Yes.
It's like... I get some use out of that Penflinger. I imagine it's going to be Consume Magic now to deal with this. I still just wonder if there's going to be a Twin Slice used. He can do it next turn and still have that Skull castable regardless.
Yes.
But if he doesn't, I'm just wondering what he's going to do with the rest of his turn, I guess. Just Shard Chat to kill off this, and Hero Power is maximizing the damage just by squeezing those Hero Powers as much as possible.
A simple spell.
Priest having too many generation effects. Could just go for Radiance. He doesn't want to burn the coin here.
Yep.
I don't hate it.
I don't either.
So what he's doing here really is saving the Radiance to proc the Pyro, right?
Well, I mean, yes, but he also just used coin, which procs the Pyro even more efficiently. Like, if you think of it in terms of like proccing Mount Seller or proccing Kael'thas, right? Like, the coin is an innovate. It not only allows you to proc the actual thing itself, but also fit in another spell because you get additional mana.
Yeah, I guess upside of this, if there's going to be one, is that he gets to just press the Hero Power an additional turn, right? Because although you could say, well, if he holds the coin, he can Radiance anyway, heal for more later. You can only Hero Power once a turn generally, which means if you get to do it more turns than not, you've probably healed for more in the game. So it looks a little bit strange to me. I think I would have just played the Radiance, personally. But still going to be some upside for this play.
I think I would have too, but I don't object to this line. I think it makes sense. For the reasons you described, it's technically just net 2 healing over the course of the game to do it this way. So.
Marrow Slicer, Blade Dance. Okay. Not
pretty good.
The worst skull I've ever seen by any stretch. Just look about time that we might see an Apotheosis on this Spellkin, though. Seems reasonable. Could even drop down the Sethic as well. It is always difficult, though, to play into a skull turn, right? Because you know your opponent's not... Well, Warma's got a ton of cards full stop. You know 3 of them are greatly reduced. So I don't think anything AyRoK does this turn, he can really expect it to live.
Like this pick. Right Wing or Chrono Breaker, I wouldn't have really objected to either. That's good information, if nothing else. It's a fairly trashy card. The fact that it's discounted at least makes it somewhat playable for AyRoK, but it's still a fairly garbage card for him, obviously. But it's crucial information about what's going on in his opponent's hand right now.
Yeah, I think even playing it now seems okay. Just 4 mana 5/5, and he has the information. Trade off into the 3/2. Seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah, I do like this, though. Drop the second Draconic Studies here, no real reason not to. Might find something more effective, like a 6-mana dragon there that you wanted to play instead. But picks up the Skeletal Dragon instead, just to have that big taunt.
Yeah, 5 mana Skeletal Dragon or 6 mana Murazon. These things seem pretty solid. As I said, in the post-Skull turn, you're not really expecting these minions to live. AyRoK's not really seen much from Warma all game. So you are expecting Blade Dance or some kind of damage to come down. Oh, he has to Blade Dance, right? Seems far too good to not do.
Agreed. Now, is it yet time to press the 30 button? I don't think it is.
No, I actually think Murazon Death could be quite good here.
Murazon Death? Just to load up the board?
Yeah, you should get a big board and you kill the 5/5, which is the important one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just saw a Blade Dance for 0. Is it realistic that Warma's going to be able to kill off the Murazon and the 5/5? I think 16 health after killing the 5/5 is probably safe, and then do the big turn next turn. We're going to go for Skeletal Dragon Radiance. This is the more, I would say, like defensive play, because obviously Taunt gets to heal. But I think 16 was safe.
Certainly a big ask. It would have to be Marrow Slicer and the other Lapidary plus things, right? And likely one or both of those cards would have to be discounted by the Skull, and you already know what one of the discounted cards is with the Sociologist.
Yeah. And then you have 2 good targets for Apotheosis next turn, if for some reason you don't want to Pyro Apo in that turn. So, yeah, we are just going to have a bit of a disconnect there, so the game is paused while whichever player it was, I'm not sure, gets back into the game. But yeah, that was a very interesting choice. Maybe I just lean to those, actually, I'm going to turn into the aggressive plays a little bit too much for my own good a lot of the time. But that looked pretty positive. He leaves the mana feeder on board, so I guess he'd be on effectively 14 health that turn. But he'd have an 8/8, a 5/5, and then he has the huge Pyromancer reset the turn after. It looked okay, but AyRoK did choose for the slightly more defensive play.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I do get to be a bit smug because, I've been playing this deck and this matchup for quite a long time, and I've had multiple, top players spectating me, watching me play the game, just be like, why aren't you playing like big threats? Why are you being so defensive? Why are you trying to just outlast the damage? But I just kept winning, so I just kept doing it. I saw no reason to change my playstyle, and now it seems like history has proved me correct because that seems to be the style of play that all the top players have come around to doing as well in the matchup. So I do definitely see the merit of making the aggressive counter push there just because of the timing being so specifically after you saw the Blade Dance from your opponent.
Yes.
But I cannot fault heal up, play big taunt as a generic default play against Demon Hunter.
So Fragment's going to get shuffled in, unless you're going to be able to clean up the rest of this Dragon, sorry. And then I imagine we're going to see that weapon swing face.
There it goes. This is my slight concern about the way these last few turns have been played from AyRoK, though, is that he has slowly, turn by turn, cannibalized all of his Pyromancer spells. The Coin, the Radiance, the Renews, all of these things that he's had over various points. Don't get me wrong, I advocated for using 1 or 2 of them on certain turns as well, but I do feel like AyRoK has potentially just used up one too many here, and that's left him in a position where, without Soul Mirror, he should have had this in mind, right? Because A, it's the way you lose a lot of the time. B, it's the thing that you need an answer to when you don't specifically have Soul Mirror. C, he's just seen it in his opponent's hand, right? So he just knows it's there to be dealt with. So I think he should have been having this in mind constantly, of just making sure he had the effective AoE, which he doesn't really have now without consuming both of his apotheosis, which doesn't feel too great.
Yeah. Also, what doesn't feel too great is it looks like AyRoK is on the receiving end of the internet issues. I imagine as he's the one reacting first on camera, at least. I might be wrong, of course. I'm just saying what I see. But it looks like there's some slight internet issues, and it's bad for both players, honestly. No one wants to have connections in and out. For either of these players, you saw Warma just like, come on, pretty tough matchup. Let's just play it out smooth. But luckily, the pause function does come into play quite nicely.
Right.
Gonna go for it though, and he has to. Of course.
Wait, what did he just hit? That's a targeted spell. Oh, silence is insane. Hello?
Oh, into Radiance.
I don't think that gets played, right? It doesn't actually achieve anything. It was just like it was just hitting that third playable on this turn. As soon as the silence was hit, I think this turn was just kind of locked up as a good turn. He can just rip the wave of apathy and deal with the situation. The Radiance he can preserve for a rainy day at this point.
But the follow-up is not so great looking at AyRoK's hand, is it?
No.
And Warma is by no means out of resources quite yet. Still, of course, has the Altruist Penflinger combos, which is, again, a benefit of this style of Demon Hunter that we see not a lot of Grandmasters outside of the French region, in Europe at least, actually bring, is the Penflinger version. You're about to see why some players do like it. They've done, what, 3 to 6 damage before this turn even happened this game? Can't quite recall every point, of course, but still a good chunk.
Now coming into play with that Altruist combo as well. Warma leaves one exposed to board, which is fine. You're probably not expecting too many exciting ways for AyRoK to be able to answer that. Holy Smite is an absurd draw, though. And this Murazond lines this turn up so insanely well for AyRoK.
How many Penflingers is he gonna get? That's so sick.
I mean, it's the Altruist more than anything else, right?
Just everything.
The Altruist is insane because he has Smite from Outcast, and now he is the Penflinger deck.
That is insane, honestly. Yep. I've cast a lot of this Penflinger list, and I have not actually seen that happen yet, and it's absolutely madness. Penflinger can even go face, of course, because of the Altruist.
Yep.
And now Warma is quite seriously on the back foot. That is not a turn you wanted to see.
If only there was a way to get like a permanent Apo buff on your Penflinger, so every time you bounced it back to hand and dealt 1 damage, you got the healing. Oh, yeah.
Need some kind of Paladin hand buff card or something to make it work.
That's what I'm talking about. More likely the Apo just goes on this Murazond and ends the game, you know, but...
No. The Apo goes on the Altruist, of course, sort of. Come on.
Does that actually end up... It might actually end up being more, genuinely, right?
It's cooler, and you know what I think about the cooler plays.
It is objectively cooler, you are correct.
And it also makes it not die as easily to a weapon swing, right? I actually think it's just not a bad idea.
I mean... Having a 10-11 is a 10-11, though. Can I interest you in a 10-11?
Only if the Altruist isn't on the table. But yeah, I'll take it. It's fine.
Okay, imagine you weren't just trying to do the fun thing and you had to play a series of Hearthstone, say, with your Grandmasters career on the line. Could I interest you in a 10-11 then?
I actually think there's a chance you'd make the play for the Altruist. Just for the full glory play. Workstrade's going to come down instead, but I do, of course, see your point. The 10-11 going to be a huge problem for Warma to deal with. One Blade Dance already gone, and his weapon is relatively small.
Because that's the big kicker, right? Like, I think the Altruist play has more upside, and yes, you probably do technically get more healing off of it. But it's very easy for Warma to deal with, even with 5 health, in comparison to the minion that you made otherwise of the 10-11, right? Which is just a straight-up game ender.
This just doesn't look like it's going to cut it. The Blade Dance gone. Penflingers are going to come out to play, but it's just not going to be enough.
Wasn't me! Hey, loser! Wasn't me! Hey, loser!
AyRoK's just like, come on, I know this is conceding. Just concede already. Put me out of my misery.
Warma wants to stack the pressure.
Yeah.
Because he knows all this damage he's doing to the face doesn't matter because he's going to heal it all the way back up, even if he survived anyway.
Yep.
There's the concede. AyRoK goes up 2-0, and I will say, although AyRoK won, for me, the play looked a little bit shakier than the Mage game we saw earlier on. It looked like there were a few decisions that could have gone a little bit either way, at least in the usage of those resources in hand. But I think most importantly, the matchup approach looked quite correct from AyRoK there.
It did, yeah. There were just decisions that I think he got wrong, and there was long-term planning decisions that I think showed a little bit of inexperience in the matchup, possibly. I think AyRoK has self-confessed that his priest play has been lacking in places. At least I think that was him. I hope I haven't just described someone else's comments to him. But, you know, he did have to get bailed out of a couple of sticky situations, most notably with the Pyrocephic turn, where he just hit the extra spell to be able to have the efficient board clear while keeping the Apotheosis, which ended up being huge. But the huge turn with the Murazond hitting all the Penflingers, he spotted that instantly, and that was certainly the turn that completely locked out the game. So a mixed bag so far from AyRoK. I think the opening game was fantastic. I think that game certainly had its moments, but there was some questionable stuff in there as well. But none of that really matters. You know, he won't be interested in hearing any of that right now. He's just staring at the scoreboard, and right now the scoreboard says 2-0 AyRoK.
Yeah, and now we're going to go into a matchup that is 100% Demon Hunter favorite. No, I'm joking. it is going to be Demon Hunter versus Mage here. Warma taking or using the Jandis version in there as well with the Arcane Insect and one Conjurers, but no the one Devolving Missiles. I swear that changes place every time I see it. So it's going to be a pretty standard list overall for Warma going up against AyRoK's list, which again is just a little bit different for himself. He isn't running the Penflingers, he is running the Horde Pillager in there as well, so has some more of a longer game options, but I don't think that specifically is going to come into play versus Mage.
No, I mean, it can do rarely when you just get an extremely aggressive opener and you just kind of play very Bomb Warrior style, where it's just weapon swing face, Horde Pillager, weapon swing face, some more setup lethal. But that is very, very rare because you do have to at least pay some attention to the board states that Mage usually generates in the early game.
And although AyRoK had a great game one, a decent game number two, it's all on Warma now to defend. He needs to be able to claw some of these games back. Wouldn't be the first reverse sweep we've seen all weekend, though, so still a good chance. Interesting play here. If he goes for Eldrazi Warblades, I imagine he's going to swing now, swing next turn, and probably plan on equipping the Marrow Slicer over the top and just not swing for the turn after, because he does have that Glaive Bound that you just will want active as soon as possible, and I don't think AyRoK will want to be waiting around an additional turn to activate the Glaive Bound effect, because it's so useful sniping those key minions from Mage.
I was looking a little bit at just going Demon Companion Twin Slice Hero Power there to kill the 2/2, have the extra minion on board, and just preserve potentially the Warblades for later. You can just go straight into the Marrow Slicer next turn, and that also plops the Consume Magic nicely into the Outcast position on the left-hand side of your hand, which I think is not nothing as well.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I definitely think, and I'm not saying you were really advocating it for this reason, but I do think this matchup isn't saved by big heals from a late game Eldrazi. So I think that's part of a reason to just use the Warblades regardless. So I think I like how AyRoK did it. You could just save all these tools just in case he needs the Twin Slices, for example, to help with a big Blade Flurry on a Conjurer's turn, which is the scariest bit of the game. Warma, though, has managed to go off with the Apprentice and the Cyclone. Now he just has the issue of he's got all the spells, now he just needs the minions this time. If he combines his two Mage games together, he's got one heck of a hand.
says explode.
So,
Time runs out on me.
that's a ton of spells there from Warma. He does have a ton of burn available and some removal as well, so he might actually be piecing together a highly aggressive plan here. AyRoK, though, with the soul fragments, I think, was that a shard shatter pull by any chance? It must have been. The fist pump only means one thing.
This power.
And he's to be able to clean this up. That is absolutely huge. And it's not as if the board was strictly just going to win Warma the game there and then, but it's more the difficulty in dealing with a board that wide. It does mean that without being able to clear it up in just one go, AyRoK would have had to spent multiple turns back to back dealing with that. Would have been a huge issue. But now, with the Shard Shatter, he is back in the game. Warma, of course, still has all those resources available to him, which means that this combustion is going to come into play pretty nicely to clean this up. So he has that Fireball and Pyroblast, and we are slowly moving towards the point in the game where those are going to be pretty important, especially seeing that Aldraki Blades used up a little bit earlier in the game. Astromancer Solarian dropping down now, though. Does give AyRoK something to consider, but with that swing already loaded in if he wants, and the Glaive Bound, he can clean this up. But choice or question number one here, does he want to consume magic, the Astromancer Solarian, so he doesn't have to worry about a prime initially? Or does he just want to ignore it, kill it off, and keep pushing damage and keep the consume magic available to him for maybe something a little bit scary in the near future? If he doesn't go for the consume, he does get to push some more damage. I think either way, we are going to see the Glaive Bound, we are going to see the weapon swing. It is just all about this consume magic. We can see, of course, that, at least for now, there isn't even a good chance for a target that's more important for consume than the Astromancer. But AyRoK doesn't know that. He could be facing down a giant into Conjurers very, very soon, in which that consume magic could be huge. He's actually pushing all the damage to face. Warma, 9 health. AyRoK, double twin slice for 4. Hero power for 5. This has to be cleaned up by Warma, or he is simply dead. Cleaned up or frozen, though, of course. If the 6-4 is frozen, then he's not going to be able to push the final bit of damage he needs. But I actually really like this play from AyRoK.
Okay, sorry, I'm back, hopefully. You hear me? Hello.
Yes, I do hear you, Sol. Welcome back. Had a small internet issue yourself then. But yeah.
I did, it's contagious, apparently.
Been chatting to the viewers on my own, it's fine.
Okay.
I've been hanging out.
Alright, what did I miss?
Most important. So AyRoK has just gone full aggro. He drew a Shard Shatter on against a wide board of Warma perfectly on time to clean up a pretty aggressive turn with their Mana Cyclone. And then he chose to actually not consume Magic the Solarian and go for Glaive Bound to face with the weapon swing, kind of setting up lethal. But Warma's got a ton of resources from an earlier Cyclone turn.
Nothing particularly defensive looking, though, which is a very, very big deal.
The Giant Draw is huge, though. It does give him a setup for next turn. The Devolving being able to clear that off does mean he's not strictly facing down a Tumble.
Oh! What did I come back to, Raven? Devolving Missiles!
Actually ruin AyRoK a little bit there.
I mean, the skull came off the Star Scryer, right? That got devolved into.
Oh, sure. It was. Yeah, that was the. Yeah.
So he just wouldn't have the skull if it wasn't for that.
True,
like that's just straight upside.
For some reason, I had it locked in my brain that it was just draw a card and not a spell, which is obviously a specific pull. It's going to be able to clean this up, though. Soul Shit and that Blade Dance. There goes the Giant. And look at AyRoK. He knows this is the moment. One more turn. And with Consume Magic, Skull in hand, he is likely to draw some damage. Warma needs some kind of defense. But he has 2 secrets in hand, Sottle, but neither of them are Ice Barrier.
I know. I'm kind of mad that I missed the middle of this game because this is one of those super aggressive looking Demon Hunter games that we just haven't seen for quite some time. Everyone's been playing like very heavy control mid-rangey style, right, with the Demon Hunter in this matchup. Whereas this just seems like every point of damage has just gone straight up face for AyRoK so far.
And it all came off the back of that Shard Shatter. The perfect answer to Warma's big wide board turn. Without that, AyRoK was swinging many times to get through that board.
Right.
Draw again. Needs 1 damage. That's not it. But he's got to learn very swiftly that that's not Ice Barrier, and if it's not Ice Barrier, then AyRoK's got to be pretty happy.
Oh, look at the moment of relief. He sees no Ice Barrier get drawn. Oh,
This
not
could
like
be a
this,
punish
Raven.
Soul. He had the choice to silence it. He had the choice.
Nothing. 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 One last spell. It's a very big nothing, but it's still nothing, Raven.
And we can see, of course, there is no follow-up. AyRoK's going to get the news. If he could attack face last turn, he can attack face this turn, and that's AyRoK going to be surviving in this relegation match. 3-0 over Warma, and it could have been ruined with that final prime that did not have to be there, but he got away with it. AyRoK is going to be staying in Grandmasters, and it is Warma who loses his relegation match.
I am still here. My internet hasn't dropped. I just wanted to let that moment speak for itself, because I've become a big fan of this kid. Like, he clearly cares, and that's all that I ask at this point, is just having people invested in the program, invested in competitive Hearthstone, and even if they aren't necessarily the absolute top tier world beaters, and that some of the players with the legacy that they have, if they care as much as AyRoK clearly does, they'll put the work in and they'll get there eventually. So I love to see it. I love to see that reaction. That moment where he popped off at the end after he saw the prime whiff and he knew he won, like, I had this genuine, like, huge smile on my face, and like my arms still kind of like tingly with goosebumps a little bit, because these are the moments of emotion that, I love to see. It's why I love doing what I do, because I love this game, and I just love seeing the reactions of people being successful in it. And don't get me wrong, overall, it's not a hugely successful season for AyRoK, but when you boil it all down to that final series, that is the success that he was looking for. He gets to do it again.
It was so tense as well, because I think you weren't here yet, but there was a glaive bound turn with the